Okay, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to break down the vocabulary of argument. Today, every single word we are covering actually comes out of one incredibly dense, real-world text about expected goals in football. It's a perfect example of how educated English tackles a contested idea. But look, we aren't here to argue about sports. We're talking about the language of technical debates, design reviews, and high-stakes data science interviews. Think of me as your vocabulary coach today. We are going to look at exactly what words you need to use to defend your choices and win those debates. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The players. 2. The argument playbook. 3. The data reality. 4. Our ESL corner for Spanish fixes. And 5. The interview defense. Starting off with Section 1, the players. Who is for it and who is against it? Whenever we look at a contested idea in a meeting, we always need to start by identifying who is standing on either side of the table, right? Our first player is the skeptic. Now, just a quick note on spelling. It's a C in the UK and a K in the US, but it sounds exactly the same. A skeptic is someone who doubts a claim and wants to see hard evidence before accepting it. And this is absolutely crucial. A skeptic is not a cynic. A cynic just expects the worst, but a skeptic, they can absolutely be convinced if your data is good. So in a meeting, you might say, the skeptics were not entirely wrong to resist the new pipeline, or, you need to provide rock-solid metrics to win over a true skeptic. Now, on the exact opposite side of the table, we have the proponent. A proponent is someone who argues for an idea and pushes it publicly. This is a highly useful, completely neutral word in business English. It describes a position without praising or attacking the person holding it. For example, you might say its proponents occasionally overclaimed what the model could do. Or maybe you're talking about yourself. As a proponent of the software, I have to defend its ROI. Let's drill these words in a more natural, conversational setting. Imagine you are in a meeting discussing that expected goals metric from our source text. You might lean in and say, look, I know there's a lot of skepticism from the engineering team, and honestly, as a skeptic myself, I get it. But the proponents of this new model have some really compelling data we just shouldn't ignore. Hearing them together like that really shows you how effectively they frame a debate without making things personal. Section 2, the argument playbook. How claims actually win, lose, or hold their ground. Okay, now that we know who is in the room, let's look at the actual tactical nouns of the debate. First up is rhetoric. This is persuasive talk, as opposed to actual evidence. It's usually slightly negative in a text setting, like saying someone is all rhetoric, no proof. Then we have attrition. This is winning by lasting. It's a slow wearing down over time until the other side just gives away. Next is sophistry, which is just a fantastic word. Sophistry is an argument built solely to win rather than to be true. Hiding bad data behind complex math, that is pure sophistry. And finally, entrenched. When something is so firmly established that removing it is incredibly hard, like trying to rip out an entrenched legacy system. This quote from our text brilliantly illustrates how these words work together in the real world. What settled it was not rhetoric but results. The metric won by attrition. Season after season, it kept being right. I really want you to notice how powerful that framing is. You aren't winning because you're some smooth talker using clever rhetoric. You are winning by lasting. Your data just keeps being right day after day until the skeptics literally just run out of arguments. Listen closely, because if you remember only one word from this entire explainer for your next job interview, make it this one. Defensible. Defensible means your choice is able to survive being challenged. You can justify it under pressure. You don't have to claim your model is perfect. You don't have to claim it's optimal. You just have to prove that, given the constraints you had, your choice was defensible. It is the ultimate professional shield. You might tell an interviewer, my choice of algorithm wasn't perfect, but it was highly defensible. Let's add 2 powerful action verbs to your playbook. First, to vindicate. This means to prove someone was right all along, especially after a long period of doubt. 2 seasons of data completely vindicated the approach. On the flip side, we have to conflate. This is when you wrongly treat 2 totally different things as if they were the exact same thing. Like counting all shots equally conflates volume with quality. Using conflate is an incredibly professional, sharp way to dissect a flawed metric without sounding emotional. Section 3, the data reality. Describing your models and metrics honestly. The absolute best way to win a technical argument is not to pretend your data is perfect. It's to accurately describe its flaws using the right vocabulary. First is crude. Let me be clear, calling your own model crude is not an insult, it's an honest assessment of a rough, unrefined early-stage version. Next is sparse, data that is thinly spread, full of gaps, the exact opposite of dense.
And finally, hostage to, meaning completely dependent on something completely outside your control. In a conversation, you could string these together beautifully. Look, I know the first iteration was crude, but we couldn't do much else because we were hostage to incredibly sparse data. It sounds measured, it sounds honest, and it sounds highly competent.
Let's just do a really quick refresh on a few review terms that pop up constantly. Noise is that random variation carrying absolutely no real information. Regression to the mean is when those extreme values in small samples inevitably drift back to average. A gap is just a nice, honest word for a measured weakness. But my absolute favorite here is beside the point. Something that is technically true, but entirely irrelevant to the actual question being asked. Saying a stubborn stakeholder's pet metric is accurate, but beside the point is simply the politest, most devastating way to kill a bad idea in a meeting. Section 4, ESL Corner, avoiding common translation traps.
All right, let's call a quick tactical timeout. For our Spanish-speaking data scientists tuning in, we're going to fix 3 specific vocabulary patterns that directly trip you up when translating your thoughts into English. Fix number 1. In Spanish, you might describe a difficult, complicated text as pesado. But if you translate that directly to "this paragraph was too heavy," it sounds really strange to native ears. Heavy is literally just pesado, wearing an English code. Instead, for text packed with meaning, say it was too dense, or if it was just exhausting to get through, call it a slog. And if you want to be incredibly professional, just say it was above my level. It's precise and carries absolutely zero complaint.
Fix number 2 targets the Ike versus Eichel pair. Spanish often collapses these concepts into a single word, like historico. But in English, you actually have to consciously choose between them. Historic means important enough to be remembered, like a historic peace treaty or a historic milestone. Historical just means relating to the past. So in business, you don't make an historic decision about the model, you make a decision for historical reasons. Fix number 3 targets a very common spoken habit, translating la razón es porque word for word. If you say, the reason is because the data was sparse, you are actually stating the cause twice. It's totally redundant. In a high-stakes interview, you want to sound measured and precise. So just pick one. Say either, the reason is that the data was sparse, or simply, it's because the data was sparse. Doing this instantly elevates the polish of your spoken English. Section 5, the interview defense, putting the playbook into action. Okay, it is game day. We are going to take all this new vocabulary and deploy it to answer a tough interview question. Imagine I'm the tough interviewer, looking at your portfolio, and I ask, you used a fairly simple model here. Why not something stronger? A weak answer here would be saying, well, it was easier and I didn't have much time. That completely fails to defend your choice, right? It makes you sound rushed. It makes you sound unstrategic. Instead of making excuses, we build an unbreakable defense using our playbook. Step 1, you claim the choice is defensible, not optimal. Step 2, you honestly note that data in rare categories was sparse. Step 3, you warn them that using a heavier, more complex model would make it hostage to noise. And Step 4, you freely admit the first version was crude because you needed to build a trusted baseline first. And then you bring it all together and deliver this absolute knockout punch of a closing statement. You say, what I'd say honestly is that I'm a proponent of this simple version for this data set, not in general. Give me an order of magnitude more data, and I'd expect the complex model to be vindicated. But right now, that's just rhetoric. I haven't got the evidence yet. So why does an answer like this completely win the interview? Because in English business culture, justifying a choice honestly is vastly superior to overclaiming. This answer never claims the simple model is universally better. It states the exact conditions under which your choice holds true. It names exactly what new data would actually change your mind. And most importantly, it proves to the interviewer that you know the difference between a genuinely defensible position and mere sophistry. Let's lock this in before we go. If you take away only 3 words from today's explainer to use in your work tomorrow, make it these 3. Number 1, defensible. A choice you can justify under pressure. Number 2, sparse. The honest, professional way to describe data with gaps. And number 3, attrition. Winning the argument by lasting, by being consistently right over time. I'm going to leave you with this. When you walk into your next design review or sit down for that critical technical interview, will you rely on flashy rhetoric, hoping they don't look too closely? Or are your choices defensible enough that you are completely prepared to win by attrition? Think about that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.